masonry moisture in old houses. Old buildings frequently have the unwanted accompanying aspect of moisture in their walls, which causes increasing damage over the years. The unpleasant accompanying aspect is referred to as rising ground moisture. In the graphic diagram you see how ground moisture is rising. It's a nearly invisible phenomenon. It becomes visible in higher portions of the wall due to the damaged plaster. The results are damage of paint, water stains, salt efflorescence and plaster flaking on the facade of the house. By the interaction of complex chemical and physical forces acting on this masonry, it will be slowly but surely destroyed. Basic data. From building physics we know that water is absorbed from building materials like a sponge. This effect is referred to as the capillary effect. If we put two materials of different porosity into a water ball, we will observe the following. Building materials with larger pores absorb more, while those with smaller pores absorb less. The thinner these pores are, the more capillary they have, the higher the water rises. In old masonry that lacks a horizontal moisture barrier or where it is partly rotten, ground moisture rises into masonry. Ground moisture in the capillaries of masonry rises to a point where it oozes out as water vapor at the so-called evaporation zone. This results in the capillary heads in masonry, which grows a little every year. It may be manifested as annual rings caused by different degrees of salt efflorescence. Moisture penetrates the ground due to precipitation, dew or groundwater. It then enters the foundation of masonry where it rises and evaporates, mainly in higher portions of the wall. The greater the quantity of moisture, the larger is the amount of evaporation at the evaporation zone. As a result, salts that damage the basic structure of a building enter the masonry from the ground. The salts rise in a dissolved in water condition into the capillaries of masonry and are deposited in the evaporation zone in higher layers of masonry, especially in the pores of the plaster. The salts of building materials are also dissolved by the moisture stream, rise and additionally enter the pores of the plaster. Due to such evaporation, most salts are deposited in air pores, which are crucial for the regulation of the atmosphere in the room and clog the pores. The breathability of the plaster is thus reduced. In conventional plasters, salts usually rise to a visible plaster surface when they crystallize. The pressure of such crystallization and other chemical and physical mechanisms eventually destroy the plaster. In so-called renovation plasters, the aggressive salts are deposited in the lowest layer of plaster. The salts clog these pores and the plaster becomes waterproof. This makes the capillary head rise even higher and destroy further layers of plaster and wall. As wet masonry permits heat to flow out more easily than the dry masonry, the heat insulation of the building worsens. This means the following for you: much higher heating costs in the winter.